Well, ladies and gentlemen, aren't you lucky? 2 videos in one day, and this is actually a news story that, to be frank, nobody's talking about. In fact, the actual person who told me about it and sent me all the paperwork was Ronaldo Host. So thank you to Ronaldo Host. Now, Ronaldo did actually do a video on this, and so at the end of my video, why don't you go watch his video and show the guy a little bit of love and say, I came from Morning Shot on his video, just so he knows that we're far more important than he is. In any case, this is a bill that was put before the House of Foreign Affairs and Judicial Committees in the United States on the 17th of June, 2025. Now, it was put forward by Republican Greg underneath bill number HR 4051. Now, bill HR 4051 is classed as addressing the hostile and anti-Semitic conduct by the South African Act of 2025. And so what the actual bill, if it passes, will become an act, does is it seeks to empower the United States government to take a stronger stance against the Republic of South Africa in response to its actions which are deemed to be hostile or anti-Semitic towards Israel and Jewish individuals. It establishes tools to hold South Africa accountable in international forums. What it does is it directs the United States to raise concerns with South Africa's government about official or institutional anti-Semitism. It encourages active U.S. engagement in diplomacy and public condemnation of such conduct. So this would mean that the United States would be on the international stage talking more about how bad the South African government is. However, it also requires the United States to advocate for heightened scrutiny in international bodies like the United Nations. It aims to counter any derogatory or biased resolutions targeting Israel or Jewish communities. Now, you may look at that and say, okay, well, is this all about Israel? And the answer to that is no. And this comes after an article written by Joel Pollak on the 1st of July, which highlights that the Foreign Affairs Ministry posted a photograph of a senior official with a portrait of the Ayatollah, the supreme leader of Iran, signing a condolence book for Iran in Pretoria. And this was following the military strikes against Iran by Israel and the United States, now known as the 12-Day War. Conduct such as this mean that the United States have taken interest in South Africa and specifically its pro-Islamist type stance, whether it be advocating for Hamas or promoting forms of Iranian partnership, if you want to call it that. And so what the actual bill does is it mandates periodic reporting to Congress detailing instances of anti-Semitism or hostility by South African institutions. Now, there are numerous instances where South Africa goes to the UN and basically screams and shouts about war crimes occurring in Gaza. Well, according to the United States, they will be counteracting this, and they will have, obviously, the approval of the United States government to do that. But it actually goes a little bit further than this. And what it does is it authorizes, but doesn't require, the president to impose sanctions on individuals if diplomatic efforts fail. So this means that if they go to the UN and tell South Africa to shut up, maybe get its facts straight and stop siding with Iran, and they don't, then what it does is it allows Donald Trump to individually target sanctions on key members of the South African government. Now, we've seen in previous correspondence that part of the parties that may be addressed by this whole thing are people such as Pandor or potentially Ramaphosa or maybe ambassadors. But in any case, what the bill actually does is it shows a rising concern in Washington over South Africa's statements and actions in the international arena, especially at the UN, where in many instances, the viewpoint that South Africa tends to advocate is disproportionately critical of Israel. And it's at this point in time that the United States is saying, you're abusing the international stage to push forwards certain narratives that might not necessarily be correct. Instead, what the United States wants to do is to be proactive in its defense of Jewish rights and wishes to act against any forms of institutional bias, So now you may ask the question, well, what institutional bias? Well, we've already seen in places like UCT, University of Cape Town, where the actual university itself is incredibly pro-Hamas and very pro the Intifada. Let's globalize it. And in terms of Cape Town, this seems to now become the norm, specifically in academia. So instances like that are highlighting potential institutional bias. We've already seen places like Johannesburg, where there was a councillor who was told to get lost because he was Jewish. There's numerous instances in South Africa where forms of institutional bias and forms of anti-Semitism are now becoming the norm. Now, if the bill is passed, now it's important to understand that it's only currently being referred for assessment, but if the bill is passed, then this is yet again another stick in which the United States aims or intends to use to beat the South African government. Now, how would it get passed? Well, it still needs to get through forms of committee deliberations, and it needs political backing. And it's important to note that given the number of bills that get introduced to the United States, well, the chances of this actually happening are rather slim. Not impossible, but inevitably slim. Many individuals are highlighting that the intention of the act itself is to stop South Africa engaging in lawfare at the International Court of Justice against Israel. The intention is to stop South Africa aligning with Iran economically and militarily. It's also intending to stop South Africa supporting or sympathizing with Hamas. So the question then becomes, if South Africa remedies its actions and does something about it now, would the act even be needed in the first place? And the answer would obviously be, well, no. Because the whole purpose of the act is to argue that South Africa continues to misuse international law to promote anti-Semitism. And in many instances, that's very hard to dispute. In any case, it is yet again another targeted approach in which the United States is highlighting South Africa, and it's, well, to be frank, it's a deeply troubling international position. And it is yet again showing you that, South Africa these days doesn't have a good standing internationally. But these are just my views. Do let me know what you think in the comment section below. Until Monday, bye.
Disagree with you, okay? That is why I ticketed.
So anyone cycling no-handed in rush hour in City London is going to get ticketed.
If I see them,
they
yes.
are, and you think
it's
that
not,
you think that is a
policy.
valuable use of City of London police time when bike theft is endemic. You don't even investigate most bike thefts. Let me finish. And where there's phone snatching going on, you could be getting robbers, and you're letting phone snatchers and bike thieves go to ticket law-abiding citizens cycling no-handed. Do you think that's an honestly good use of City of London police time?
So, cycling with no hands on the handlebars.
Yeah.
Okay. Places other road users at risk. Contravenes.
No, it doesn't. How does it? How does it?
We've already spoken about this.
This is amazing. So, cycling no-handed violates Article 2 of the Human Rights Act. Is that the right to life?
No, I said it endangers people.
You said it
on the road.
You just said it. Me cycling no-handed violates Article 2 of the Human Rights Act. I think we're done with that. It's rather silly, isn't it?